All right. Well, I'm starting the recording. I want to welcome everybody to Kiwanis Let's Talk. It's Thursday, August 19th, and I am very happy to have with us tonight um, colleague, a good friend from Kiwanis International. She's actually from Sullivan's Island, South Carolina. Meet Elizabeth Tezza, who was appointed to the Kiwanis Children's Fund in 2020. She's a member of the Kiwanis Club of East Cooper, Mount Pleasant, and has served as the Kiwanis the Carolina's district governor in 2009, 2010, and then she served on the international board as international trustee from 2012 to 2015. So we had a great opportunity to serve together. She is a passionate supporter of the Eliminate Project and served in the role as a district coordinator, as a district advocate. And she participated in a field visit to Zambia in 2018 to see UNICEF's work in action. She has served on the Kiwanis youth programs and governance committees, earned recognition as a Diamond Level George F. Hickson and many other committee work. And in addition to serving as her passions for kids through Kiwanis, she serves as chair of the Sullivan Islands Board of Zoning Appeals and as treasurer for Casillo in the Anglican Diocese of South Carolina. She's a financial controller for two nonprofits, and in her spare time, she enjoys reading, cooking, crafts, and travel. And I'm like, okay, where is that free time at, Elizabeth? I want to know so I can borrow some of it. So I'm happy to turn it over to my friend, Elizabeth Tezza.
Well, thanks, Sue. I have not attended one of these Let Talks, but I've heard all about them. And I happen to be sitting next to Sue in Salt Lake City at a meeting and said, hey, would you like me to do my program on Zambia? And she whipped out her calendar and booked me right then and there. So I am really pleased to be with y'all. And also, I'm going to mention Erin Ketzenberger and Laura Hoover. Erin is a development director at the Kiwanis Children's Fund, and Laura is the director of development, who is leaving us, unfortunately, but she's going to a fantastic position as CEO of Girls Incorporated of Greater Indianapolis. They were also both on this trip, and they haven't seen my program yet, so I wanted them to come and see themselves. So without further ado, I will share my screen. And this is my first program where I've actually pulled this map in. I decided to pull a map of Zambia. Of course, you know, it's in the southern part of the continent of Africa. What's interesting about Zambia is bordered by 8 other countries. And we actually saw 3 of those across the river while we were there. We saw Botswana, Namibia, and Zimbabwe, because we were in Lusaka and we were in Livingston. We went out to Zimba, this little town down here, and then we also went to Kazungula, which is on the Botswana border, the Zambezi River. A few facts about Zambia. In case you didn't know, it's one of the safest countries in Africa, and it actually just recently had a peaceful transfer of power from one president to another, a very rare occurrence in Africa. About half of, there are about 16.2 million inhabitants. Almost half of them are under 18. It is an extremely young country, and it is also very rural. So we started out our visit. This is just this was from the airport, just showing you where Zambia is located on that continent. Here's the back of Erin Ketzenberger right there. We're arriving at the UN compound in Lusaka for our briefings. The first day of our site visit, we had briefings from all of the department heads of the different areas, and several of the staff also traveled with us. So we got to meet the UNICEF representative to Zambia. Her name is Nola Skinner. She's British, and that's, you'll recognize Chia Sing Huang. He and his wife Louie were also on the trip. She came and had dinner with us and was also at one of our briefings. And the gentleman on the right is Shadrach Omal. He is originally from Ethiopia. What was very interesting to me is I didn't have any concept of what UNICEF Zambia would look like. I guess they've got over 100 staffers there. And for some reason, I just thought they'd be a small outpost of UNICEF USA. I really had no concept. But all of the line staff, all of the department, the managerial, they have several managerial levels. Those are all Zambians, but the upper level management and the UNICEF reps and deputy representatives are always from other countries and move around. This is our group. We all had dinner together. So this is our delegation, and then all of the staff that came to have dinner with us. And I'll tell you more about most of these people, but the lady on the right was our hostess. She was the communications officer for UNICEF Zambia. Her name was Precious. And yes, she's very tall and she's a former Miss Zambia. She's absolutely lovely person. So what I've done is we basically had 5 days of site visits. And this was a very interesting site visit because this was a combined site visit and it was a success story site visit. So it wasn't just Kiwanis Children's Fund representatives. So it was, Chia and Louie and, or Singh and Louie and Aaron and Laura and I represented the Kiwanis Children's Fund. There were also 2 representatives of the National Federation of Women's Clubs. That organization was actually a founding member of UNICEF USA. We had a UNICEF USA board member, and then we had 2 UNICEF USA staff members with us. We'll see a picture of all of us a little later on. So the first day we went to the Kafue mission. It's right outside of Lusaka. And the lady in the middle who's waving at us, she is one of 5 neonatologists in the entire country of Zambia. Most of the babies in Zambia are born with the help of midwives, not of doctors. So several of these are nurses, and then the midwives also. There had been a baby born about 7 hours before we got there. So we did get to meet this cute little baby. They were very proud of this particular maternity ward because they'd had a project there to actually build walls. This is a labor over on the left. It's a labor bed. They're actually real walls. We actually saw a clinic in Livingston in an urban area, and there were no walls or even curtains between the labor and delivery beds. You'll see that the windows are open. This particular clinic only gets power about 4 hours a day. As you can see, they don't have running water. On the right is an exam room. So that's their bucket and their basin. They were very, very proud of this facility. It's very clean. The other thing that was interesting about our trip is everywhere we went, we were greeted by volunteers. We were either greeted by volunteers at medical missions, we were greeted by PTAs when we went to schools, and we started to think of them as little Kiwanis clubs because these aunties and grandmothers and mothers were the volunteers who made sure the mothers and the babies got to the clinic for their checkups, were the liaison basically between the clientele and the medical clinic. These particular volunteers had been trained in nutrition, and so they were showing us all of the foods that they eat. They eat the entire plant. It's not just the beets, it's also the greens. And what was so interesting about this table is I am from the deep South, and they eat sweet potatoes and greens. This up here, the white grain, after they explained that to us, I said, oh, that's grits. And I'm from the South and I grew up eating grits every day. They also ate crickets. And I think Aaron, raise your hand. I think Aaron ate a cricket one of the days that we were there. So I was not.
I ate a
brave.
caterpillar.
Oh, it was a caterpillar. Sorry. I wasn't that brave.
It's worse.
But anyway, so they receive basically UNICEF also trains their volunteers as well. On the right is a motorbike ambulance. And I have a really great story about this. They built this motorbike ambulance to bring in, women that were in labor, or if they'd had their baby at home, they could bring the mom and the baby in to get their checkup. About a year after I got back from this trip, I was messing around on Twitter, which I am wont to do. And I saw a video of a motorbike ambulance. I'm like, oh my gosh, I saw one of those in Africa. So I watched it. It pulled up at the Kafue mission. I could see the sign. So it was like the same motorbike I saw in Zambia, I'm now seeing on Twitter. So it was really cool. I was able to tag UNICEF Zambia because since I tagged them so much, they follow me, and the UNICEF ambassador liked liked my tweet as well. So that was really, really fun to actually see it in action. These are some of the nurses, and our other great story is this gentleman here on the right. And he is the person that makes the chlorine solution that they use for cleaning, because they can't just go to the store and buy all the antibacterial soaps and cleaning solutions. So they make their own. And I am not a scientist, but evidently you can make an Aaron and Laura, correct me if I'm wrong, but he was basically saying with water and salt and some kind of electric current, you can make chlorine. Now there may be something else, and I'm not a scientist, so I don't know, but he had all his logs of all of the chlorine solution that he had made, how it had been used, and they also distribute it out to the surrounding community for their cleaning needs. And he had been a volunteer since 1987, making chlorine solution for this mission. And when we asked him why he had volunteered for so long doing this, his answer was very simple and very profound. He said, "We are all human beings and we need to help one another." And I thought to myself, oh, wow, he's just like me. And then I thought, no, Elizabeth, you are just like him. So it really brought full circle. We are volunteers raising money to buy vaccines so that these volunteers can make sure the mothers and the babies get to the clinics to get the vaccines. It doesn't work unless they're volunteers on either end. And that was a really big aha moment for me. So, and here's all the staff of the mission with our group. The next day we flew to Livingston. And the first place we visited was the Zambezi Sawmill School. And this is where, in fact, if you look at, I think it's the annual report. If you look at one of the new pieces, it's not the annual report, but if you look at one of the new pieces from Kiwanis Children's Fund, this picture is in there. You can see there's Sing and Louie, there's Laura and myself. Aaron, you're in there somewhere. Where are you, Aaron? I can't find you. Oh, there you are, right there.
Yep,
right there. So these girls were getting their booster, their tetanus boosters. And we asked them, do you know what shot you're getting? Do you know why you're getting it? They had been educated. They said, yes, this is going to protect us from tetanus and protect our future babies. So it was just a very, it was a wonderful and joyful place for them getting their shots, actually. They loved having their pictures taken, especially they're looking, this is Kathy Lai. She was the youngest member. Well, no, Erin was the youngest member. She's the second youngest member of our group from Chicago, a member of the UNICEF USA Midwest board. This little girl pictured with me, her name was Elizabeth. So we had our picture taken together. But they're absolutely beautiful children. And this is part of the sustainability of the Eliminate Project. So we are vaccinating the mothers so that their babies will be born protected from tetanus. The countries are making sure that the babies have their booster shots and the young girls, the teenagers, have their booster shots so that the project is sustained. Because if you just go in and vaccinate all the women of childbearing age and you don't give boosters to the children, in a couple of generations, that immunity is going to go away. So on the third day, we went to Kazungula district, and this is where we went to the border of Botswana. There's a border crossing, and it's where they said 95% of the salt comes into Zambia, because of course they have no natural ability to mine salt, and it normally comes from South Africa. So it's coming through this Botswana border. So UNICEF has provided this health station with testing equipment. This is one of the 3 gentlemen that's certified to test the salt for iodate. So this is the sustainability part of the iodine deficiency disorders project. So this is this. They said this little piece of equipment cost about $5,000, and they actually had pulled. This is a pull from a load of salt, and Sing is supervising the testing, and this load passed, what they do is they'll pull 5 samples from each load of salt coming into the country. They also can go into grocery store and pull salt off the shelves. So this is sustainability of the IDD project, making sure that the salt that's being consumed does have the appropriate level of iodate. And this is the border. Now, I just now went onto Google Maps to see if this bridge had been completed, and it has. So that they were building this bridge across from Zambia to Botswana. But before the bridge was completed, the only way you could cross this border crossing was by these little ferries. And there were 3 of them, and they just ran back and forth. The plan was we were going to ride a ferry over and back, and then they decided we didn't have visas for Botswana, so that might not be a very good idea. But this is, I live in a port city, and so I see trucks all the time. But the line of trucks to cross this border, it had to be over a mile long, and they said it was about 2 weeks to cross the border. So now that that bridge is finished, they should be able to cross it more easily. And what they would do is they'd put a big truck and a little truck and maybe another car, and then people walking and with bicycles would be on these. So this is our group picture at the border. So there's Aaron and Louie and Singh, and there's Laura and myself. This is Nancy Jones. She was with the National Federation of Women's Clubs. Michael Grzinski with UNICEF USA was our team leader. This is Kathy Lai, the UNICEF USA Midwest board member. Mansi Mehta, who is also a UNICEF USA employee, and then Mary Beth Williams with the National Federation of Women's Clubs. So this was a very unique site visit. It was a joint site visit across NGOs, and it was also to see the success of our projects. And we'll get into that a little bit later with the Eliminate project.
Elizabeth, Nancy has since joined Kiwanis, and
That's right.
I presented to her Kiwanis Club not 6 months ago.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, she moved, and her new town, she's in the Pacific Northwest district. Her new town did not have a women's club, but it had a Kiwanis club, and she had met us. So she joined Kiwanis. So that's we're proselytizing while we're in Zambia. So
Absolutely.
That's great. Thanks for reminding me of that, Aaron. So the 4th day was the Zimba district, and we were going to see the WASH project. The WASH project is water, sanitation, and hygiene. It is a Circle K International project. And it was very interesting and appropriate now that we're all learning to wash our hands. So that there's a really cute picture about this, but this was the furthest out that we went. I can't even remember it took us about an hour to get there, and these were not the biggest potholes. This is one of the roadside stands. We would see them, they would be selling chickens or chicken houses or sweet potatoes or yams on the side of the road. Again, we were met with singing and dancing by this particular PTA. It was quite lovely. Again, we were greeted by volunteers everywhere we went. 2 gorgeous little girls, and behind them is there were 2 school buildings. There are 2 rooms separated by a hallway. This building was for the older students, and then there was another one for the younger students, but aren't those little girls just absolutely precious? So while the guys, and Aaron, I'll let you talk about this because we were there again to see the WASH project. So this particular school has about, I think they said 100 to 200 students, several teachers, but they only had one 2-sided latrine for the entire school. So the WASH project came in and built latrines for them. Now, you wouldn't think that was a really big deal. However, these young ladies, because in Zambia, actually mostly on the entire continent of Africa, they do not use disposable feminine hygiene products. They use reusable feminine hygiene products. And when you do that, you have to be able to wash. There was no place for these girls to have any privacy or to wash. And so we asked them how this had changed their life, basically having a private bathroom that you're going to see in a minute And they said, well, we're able to stay in school. You know, they had to miss a week of school a month. And you can imagine what that, you know, might do, how that might impact their education. And so what happened was, I believe a nonprofit came in and dug a borehole, and then they piped water to 2 pumping stations. So Aaron, do you want to talk about, I know the guys went to see the borehole and the girls got to talk to the girls in the classroom. So Aaron, tell us a little bit about that little trek y'all had.
Yeah, so we went out and we went just about a quarter mile away from the center of the school buildings proper, and we explored the well for fresh drinking water that had been built by another nonprofit in conjugation with WASH. And one of the things that they let us sample the water. It was very, very fresh, very cold, and very minerally from way down, about 150 meters below the surface. So it's a very deep hole. And one of the things they talked about was how important it was to have this centrally located, because it wasn't just serving the school children that we were interacting with. It was serving 6 villages in the surrounding area, because it was the closest well for all of those people. And so when you think, you know, every time we turn on the sink and we just take for granted that I could just turn the faucet on and fill up, you know, a teapot or something, they have to calculate that time, that walk time, into their daily, you know, life, into their chores. And so if they want fresh water, the closer they are to a well, the better off they are, the more time they have in their day. So it's just incredibly important, real pillar of this community. And we were able to experience it firsthand.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Aaron.
You're welcome.
This particular school, some of the children would walk an hour to get to the school. It was a very, very, very remote. So you'll see what they did is they built latrines for each different age group. And what she's kind of standing in the way, but you can see they built a little privacy screen. And so you walked in and it was kind of like a little maze. You kind of walked all the way in, because the latrine was actually right here. So you walked in and walked around. And of course, there's a bucket and a basin for their water. And the funny thing is, and the cool story about this is the PTA, the president of the PTA and the vice president were fathers. They were the dads, and the dads made the bricks. So it was really a community project. The dads made the bricks for the latrine. But they said the next thing the girls want is, they didn't like the grasses for the screen. They wanted bricks. So I'd love to go back and see if they talked their dads into making the bricks so that they could have a real wall. So that was very, very sweet. Now, I love this picture, especially now that we're in a pandemic, because as you may have imagined, because of the pandemic, I did a lot of Zoom presentations to other clubs. My club's kind of sick of me talking about this, although they've actually said we have so many new members, maybe they'll let me do this presentation again for my own club. But these children learned how to wash their hands. And what were we doing all last year? We were learning how to wash our hands. So the head boy doles out the soap, they lather up, and then they pump the water, and the children wash their hands. So they wash their hands 3 times a day while they're at school. A very apropos picture as to where we've been for the past 18 months. So the 5th day, we went to the Mahatma Gandhi Memorial Clinic, and there we saw a toddler and baby clinic, and we also saw an antenatal clinic for pregnant women. These babies were getting their boosters. So I love to point out this little baby right here. About 5 minutes before I took this picture, he'd been screaming his head off because he'd been getting his tetanus booster. And so you see they have their clinic cards with all of their shot records. Something very, very interesting to us was the way that they have leveraged the technology that they have available to them. As I said earlier, some clinics may not get but 4 hours of power a day. They may not have internet access, but what they do have is cell phones. And so they actually register births by cell phone, and the volunteers in the clinics can then get alerts when the babies are due for their boosters. And then they can go out get that volunteer to go and bring that mother and baby in for their shots. So they basically leveraged the technology that they have available to them. This was the antenatal clinic where all of these women who are pregnant, they're making sure that they have all their shots. I think if you'll remember back when we started the Eliminate Project, one of the things that we were told is that as long as a pregnant woman could get 2 of the 3 shots, that her, while she was pregnant, if she had not been vaccinated before she was pregnant, the baby would have a very good chance of surviving the birth and having some immunity from tetanus. Now I'm going to show you some fun pictures. These were 2 of our escorts. This is Givus. He was the health communications officer. He was with us the entire time. And this is Gabby. When I took this picture of him, we traded around who got to sit in the front seat of the cars. And I didn't realize that this kid was running along the road. So I really love this picture. I actually have a series of 3 pictures of Gabby because he realized I was taking a picture of him. So he started laughing and then he turned and looked at me, and we were on that road with the big potholes. I'm like, no, you have to look at the road. You cannot look at me. And we saw some animals. So our hotel in Livingston was actually in a national park, and it was adjacent. It was Victoria Falls National Park. And so we had zebra and monkeys and giraffes and mongoose and little impala actually on the hotel grounds. So we're leaving to go on our site visit, and we have a zebra crossing. And the next day we went out. As we were going out, the giraffes came out. We only saw them. It was like the next to the last day we were there. We knew that they were there, but we had not seen them. So they were out there eating their breakfast. This is one of the vervet monkeys. They warned us, do not dangle your keys or your sunglasses because these monkeys will grab it and run away. And if you open your sliding glass door to your bedroom, they know that sound and they'll come in your room and try and steal your stuff. This is my obligatory selfie with a zebra. And we do have a funny story. So we were told to stay on the walkways, which we did. But we were on a walkway, Laura and Aaron and I, and I was filming these 2 little impala who were having a play fight. And there was a zebra that decided he did not want us to stand where we were standing. So we were actually chased by a zebra. And I forgot to stop filming with my iPhone. And so there's this garbled, we need to move, the zebra's coming, and we're running away from the zebra. And I still have that somewhere. I should probably save it for posterity, but not everybody can say they were chased by a zebra outside their hotel room. So that's probably one of the zebras that chased us. But this was our walk to Victoria Falls. So we were right next to Victoria Falls, and it was absolutely gorgeous. We were there about 3 weeks after the rainy season ended. So I think correct me, Aaron or Laura, I think it was 100 million gallons a second go over these falls.
Almost as full as it gets. I mean, it was just so much water.
It was a lot of water. And then before I went, I learned from a little Russian guy on YouTube how to do this with my pictures. So that was kind of cool. I took a lot of pictures of the waterfall so I could do that. And then there's a bridge you walk over this gorge. And of course, the spray was so bad. Victoria Falls is here on the right, but on the left, you could see off, and it was pretty far down. But we did, and I'm afraid of heights, but you really couldn't see, how high you were. So we walked across, and this is our proof of life picture. They gave us ponchos at the hotel, but it didn't really matter. We were absolutely soaked all the way to the skin. So the poncho really didn't help very much. Now here's the really cool thing. So when I was on my way to Zambia, I had landed in Dulles, and I get this text from Daniel Vigneron, our immediate past president. And as you know, he was born on the continent of Africa, and he's been building Kiwanis clubs there. So he texts me and he says, you have to meet Noel Lubinda, who's going to be the charter president of the Kiwanis Club of Lusaka. And he introduced us via WhatsApp. And so this was our last night at our hotel. We left Livingston and flew back to Lusaka to get ready for our flight home. And so Noel and his friend Richard came to meet with me and sing at the hotel before we left. So that was really, really cool. So this tall gentleman right here, he's the charter president of the Kiwanis Club of Lusaka, the first Kiwanis Club in Zambia. So that was really, really cool. And then we went to a game reserve. So we stayed an extra night actually to save money on our airfare. And so Laura, bless her, was our scout, and she found this Chimanuka Game Reserve for us to visit. Very large, I think. Was it 40,000 acres? It was pretty big. And I had not seen an elephant when I was in Africa. I collect elephants. They are nonpartisan elephants. I love elephants, and we hadn't seen one. We'd seen all kinds of other animals, but the first animal we saw was an elephant when we got onto the game reserve. And she is called the happiest elephant in Africa because her companion elephant died. And they looked for a mate or a companion for her, and they couldn't find one, but they found 3 babies that had been orphaned by poaching. So a number of the animals on this game reserve were orphaned by poaching. So that's why she's the happiest elephant in Africa, because elephants love to have babies. Then we saw some zebra. And when I took this picture, I didn't realize that this one zebra is pulling the tail of this other zebra. I find that very amusing. It took us about 20 minutes between the elephant and the zebra. We went for a long while and didn't see anything, but I was very happy because I said, I've seen an elephant. I don't need to see anything else. But we did see some ostrich. And then we started seeing giraffes. We saw more giraffes. This giraffe on the right didn't want his picture taken. The giraffe on the left was about 7 months old. This is an acacia tree. Now, I always leave this picture in here because when I got back, and I'm in the back of the safari Jeep, right? And I'm just taking hundreds of pictures. And I get back and I'm looking through my pictures. Y'all, this could be I live on an island in South Carolina. This could be behind my island. That looks like the low country of South Carolina. So I leave it in, especially when I'm giving a program to anybody from South Carolina, because they'll say, oh, that's low country, or that looks like the Ace Basin. So the topography was very, very similar to where I live. So I just love that picture. Now we have the cheetahs. So these were the cheetahs in my picture in the Let's Talk ad that Sue put up. I said, do you want my professional photo or do you want me with some cheetahs? She's like, oh, cheetahs, that would be great. But these 2 cheetahs, you'll see the other one in a minute, they were orphaned. Oh, Aaron, I should have put that funny one of you in here if I'd have thought about it. Aaron was making a really great face when I took his picture with the cheetah, but they were orphaned by poaching. They were 4.5-year-old brothers. So they had to be raised by hand, and they're used for education and breeding. So the rule about petting a cheetah is, first of all, you have to be behind the cheetah like that. And you can scratch his cheeks. Oh, when I did that, the trainer had said, put your hand up to his mouth. I'm like, is he hungry? And no, he licked me. It was like a big kitty cat. It's like and I have cats. So it didn't, they also purr. They're the only loud cat that purrs, but they said you can scratch their cheeks and you can rub their tummy and you can even grab their tail. But don't touch their legs. And so then somebody asked me, well, why can't you touch their legs? I'm like, I have no idea. He just told me not to touch the legs. And then we got to take the cheetah for a walk. So here are the rules. You hold the leash loosely in your hand. You walk behind the cheetah. And when the cheetah stops, you stop. And so my comment was, so the cheetah's taking me for a walk. And the answer was yes. And so here they both are. They were so fun. The one on the left, he wanted to take a nap. I think they feed them right before they do this cheetah experience. But this was, we'll never do this again in our lifetime. And there's my little selfie. I was not holding the camera. The trainer was holding the camera. So this is a pic. So now I'm going to kind of wrap up, and we'll take some questions, because we're actually going to go back to the Eliminate project. But when we were leaving the game reserve, we started seeing this rainbow, and it got bigger and bigger and bigger until finally it got full, and we all yelled stop. And I took this picture on panorama with my iPhone. But it also helped me figure out what was our elevator speech going to be. We couldn't come back and say, oh, it was amazing. We had to be able to succinctly talk about our trip and what we got, what was the one big thing we'd gotten out of it. And this rainbow at least pointed me to the answer, and that was renewed hope. When we started to work on this project, we knew that it needed to be sustained. We couldn't just go vaccinate women and then in 20 or 30 years, have to do it again. How could we have confidence that this project was going to be successful and be sustainable? Well, in the way that this project was set up, we have learned how sustainable it really is by this particular visit. So we have renewed hope that we are going to finish it. The last 12 countries will eventually come off after this pandemic's over, and they can start up vaccinations again. I mean, we've raised or leveraged $119 million for the Eliminate project. That is absolutely amazing, and we should be very, very proud of that. This project and others like it also help us live into our vision statement. Kiwanis will be a positive influence in communities worldwide, so that all children will wake up in communities that believe in them, nurture them, and provide the support they need to thrive, and not only to thrive, but to live. So this little boy, this little baby, is the face of success of the Eliminate project. His mother was given vaccinations, and he was able to survive his birth. Zambia eliminated tetanus in 2007 as part of the Eliminate project before we came on board. They have not had one case of tetanus in that country since then. I would call that a raging success. Another really interesting thing about the Eliminate project and the delivery systems that have been put in place, guess what? They're going to help facilitate COVID vaccinations, because we've had to build bridges. We've had to clear roads. Somebody actually invented a solar and or battery operated coolers to transport the tetanus toxoid, because it has to be refrigerated just like COVID vaccine has to be refrigerated. So the work we've done with the Eliminate project is actually helping facilitate COVID vaccinations, and Zambia is actually receiving vaccinations and delivering them even now. They've already started their vaccination process in Zambia. So anyway, that is just kind of a snapshot. I'll stop sharing of our trip, and we would love to answer any questions you might have. It was literally the trip of a lifetime. Understanding, you don't often get to meet the people that we serve, but we got to meet these women and these babies, and we got to see them getting their vaccinations. And we don't all get to do that. And I just feel really blessed that we were able to. So it was an honor to represent the Children's Fund. And now that I'm on the board, I'm even more of an advocate for all of our projects. And thank you for listening, and we will be glad to answer any questions.
So I will just ask everybody, since we have a smaller crowd tonight, as I mentioned earlier, there's 5 Kiwanis district conventions tonight and club leadership education. So no competition for the program this evening, but we will open it up. And if anybody has questions or wants to talk about the program, I welcome everyone to ask the questions and chit chat.
Elizabeth, what was the weather like? I noticed some of you had on long sleeve shirts and someone had short sleeve.
Well, the weather was really nice, but we wore long sleeves for a reason. And I can't remember what that was. Laura, tell me. I mean, we needed to dress conservatively, not, we had, we were told we had to wear closed-toed shoes, wear socks, wear long pants. And so, but the weather was actually really nice while we were there. It only rained one day, the last day we were there, I think it was. We had absolutely beautiful weather, but we were supposed to cover up a little bit.
For mosquitoes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yes, mosquitoes. We also
sprayed our clothing
With the permethrin. Yeah.
Yeah. And we didn't, the food was delicious. Especially the food at the Chiminuka Game Reserve, that was where we had a real African meal. But we also were very careful about water. We had to have a bunch of shots and all of that. So we had to have yellow fever and cholera, and we were reminded every morning, have you taken your malaria pill? So yeah, we had to be, but we were very well taken care of, and we felt very safe the whole time we were there.
I noted the zebra photos on the hotel lawn, just to take some of your thunder. When I was working in South Africa, on our hotel lawn, I had a rhinoceros.
Oh my gosh.
Pauline wouldn't let me get too close.
No, they're kind of dangerous, aren't they?
Very.
Well, we were at dinner one night, and dinner was al fresco. And all of a sudden I realized there was a waiter behind me shooing something away. And I'm looking, there's this, the zebra had walked right up. And then one of us, I think it was Precious, actually had to go get a hotel employee because a zebra was blocking the way to her room. she couldn't get to her room. So they kind of own the place, and they're obviously wild animals, but they also are used to being around people. So,
Yes.
so which is, I'm sure, why we were chased by that one zebra. So. Any other questions?
Well, certainly, things going through my mind is the brilliant presentation. With a permission from Sue and Elizabeth, I would like to actually run that to my club when Sue publishes it. I won't invite you to be guest speaker because our club meets at 7:30 at night, which is when you're about asleep.
No, that's 7:30 in the morning for me. I'll be glad to come to your club, Tony.
Yeah.
I'd be happy. I'd be
in
happy
person, of
with you.
course.
Oh yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
I don't think.
So-
Well, let me see if the children's fund will. No, I don't think so. If you wanted to Zoom me in, I would be happy, because I think we're. What time is it where you are right now?
At the moment, it's 10:50 in the morning.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Even if it had to get up at 5:30, that would be fine.
Yeah.
No, I would be glad to if y'all are on Zoom.
Mm.
Or you can play this one. So.
Well, as we're locked down, we're always on Zoom.
Oh, okay. Well, you invite me. I will come.
Thank you.
I'd love to. That will be my furthest presentation so far. My furthest one right now is I've done 2 clubs in California.
Yeah.
I've done several, done a lot in North and South Carolina, but I also had a division meeting in Florida. And but I mean, and I love sharing it because
it's a brilliant story.
Yeah.
And it's also very timely with the publication of the end of MNT, which has gone around Australia. Australia have been quite supportive of MNT on a per member basis. which is really, really good. And it was a great project. It was very easy to sell.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think Don had a question.
I got to say something. A buddy of mine, because I love grits, even though I'm from West Virginia. But I got the best grits I ever had. Was he sent me a bag from South Carolina? I just want to share that
Oh.
with you.
We make good grits here. Yeah.
Yeah.
And in fact, their grits, they had them, was it Nishimi? Was that the name of it? I think that's what they called it. But they
Sounds
said,
right.
yeah, is it Nishimi? They actually had it at our hotel buffet. So we were at the Taj Pamadzi in Lusaka, which had Indian ownership. And so there was a mix of foods, but they did have the nishimi, and they said they would serve it like porridge in the morning, and then it would thicken up a little bit at lunch, and then it would be even thicker at dinner, which is kind of what we do, because we will take leftover grits and put them in a glass, and then take them out and slice them and fry them. So we would have fried grits. But yeah, it was definitely grits. So it's one of their main food groups. But yes, we like our grits here in the South.
Aaron or Laura, what was your favorite part of the trip?
Laura, you want to go first? Oh, okay. My favorite part of the trip was watching the salt get tested. So the clip that Elizabeth showed, there was just a little picture of Sing, but watching them test the salt, in a place where they test 90% of the country's salt coming in was just incredible. That dedication to sustaining the progress of IDD was really inspiring. And she said, this is the testing site. What you can't tell from that picture is that's a shipping container with a door built into it, with a big UNICEF logo on the side, where that is their office. And it's three guys work out of that office testing the salt in and around the surrounding community. It was just incredible to see.
And it was actually really hot the day we went there.
Yes, it was.
It's a 20-foot metal shipping container, and I ended up in a corner, and I actually couldn't. I had to leave because I thought I was going to faint. It was so hot. So I didn't get to see the successful test. I was just watching the beginning of it. But yeah, they're very dedicated to work in a metal building in the heat. Yes, it was lovely. So Laura, share your favorite.
Sorry, there we go. Excuse me. Well, I think the most poignant moment for me was at Kafui the first day. That was day one, wasn't it? Yes.
Yeah.
And you may have said this. In full transparency, I have been shuttling children around while I'm listening. So you may have said this, but being a mother myself, I was listening closely to the experience, to how they were describing the experience that the women were having in the clinic. And Elizabeth mentioned that the clinic, they were very proud of that clinic, but an interesting point. I think that they said that there were 2 beds there previously, and that they had just built out this beautiful building, and there were 6 beds, I believe, that they could use for women coming in. And what that did for them was allowed the women to stay longer after they had their babies. So she mentioned when she was touring that prior to expanding the number of beds, the women could only stay for 6 hours post-delivery. She also happened to mention, related to the bicycle ambulance, that some of these women were coming from as far as 25, I believe it was 25 miles away, so a 25-mile radius to this health clinic, and many of them were walking. And we were aware of, I'm trying to remember if she was there or if they were telling us the story, but we were aware of women who came prior to going into labor, just so that they were already there and ready, because it's just so treacherous for them to walk all that way when they're in labor. But we were aware of a woman, I think that she was there, but with a young child laying in a bed next to her, like 3 years old. And that woman had come brought the child with her and then delivered a baby and then was going to walk back. And so by expanding this space, they were able to increase the post-delivery time to, I think, was it 24 hours? I think. Anyway, it was a little closer to what we would do here in the US. So that, thinking about that whole piece was just really interesting to me as a mother. But then Elizabeth mentioned that we started thinking of these volunteers as like little Kiwanis clubs. And this, I was so struck when we left the maternity ward and we went outside and we met these volunteers who are responsible, who are like all of you, very devoted and committed to the work that they're doing. And their responsibility is to get these women into this facility when the time is right. So they're tracking, they're tracking their pregnancies and different stages of their pregnancy and when they think they're going to go into labor. And I'm just going to say that can't be an easy job, talking a woman into walking or, being transported 25 miles into this place when she's in labor and not being able to stay very long. I mean, it would be pretty tempting to stay in your own house, right? But they did a good job and they got them all there. And so that was really interesting. And I also really enjoyed seeing the comprehensive part of this campaign. We talk about the shot all the time, but we don't talk as much about all the other pieces that Elizabeth presented that go around at the education, especially the education, the prenatal and postnatal care. All of that is a much bigger picture than we are able to portray sometimes in our Kiwanis pamphlets. So it was, as she said, very hopeful and very rewarding to see how the funds were being used. That nobody over there needs our help from an idea standpoint. They all have good ideas. They know what the problems are. They're trying to address them. They just need an infusion of funds to help get the job done. So it was really great to be a partner.
Yeah, another thing I mentioned that most of the babies are born with the help of midwives, not doctors. You'll find the doctors are in the hospitals. But actually I had a nice conversation with the neonatologist, the female doctor that was again at Kafue. And she said that the midwives are so good that if there is a problem during the birth, they'll get on the phone with an OB in a hospital who will talk them through a procedure, not surgery, but turning a baby or if somebody's in distress. That's how good the midwives are, is they can actually get instruction over the phone from a doctor in a hospital. So, because when you think of it, there are only two major cities, Livingston and Lusaka. And, it's very rural country and most of the babies are not born in a hospital. So it's good that the midwives are so good, but the neonatologist, that was the neonatologist telling me that. So I took it as, as certain. So, and they're so dedicated. They're doing so much with so much less than we do. It's really amazing. We take a lot for granted.
And I think that's,
oh, I'm sorry.
I think that's, and my experience was the same thing when I'm to Cambodia.
Yep.
You really put things into place of like, I sit and I watch what's happening in the world or in, our country here, or you sit and listen to people talk about how bad they have it. And then you go, okay, you don't know what bad is when you go visit a place, like that. And, realized, like for us, we knew that they were bringing the tetanus vaccine in on a motorbike in a refrigerated cooler because they had no electricity or any of that type of stuff there. And they had the kids were bathing in the same water as the water buffalo. And when you start to tell people that, they go, oh yeah, like I can go turn on my faucet and get fresh water. They're bathing with the water buffalo. Yeah. It really hits home.
Yeah, definitely.
And at the same time, I agree with you, Sue. And at the same time, it was really interesting to see the parallels in what they're doing there with what we're doing here. So at the same time that we in Indianapolis were talking about some transit options downtown to try to help people have more access to the things they need, like healthcare. Our friends in Zambia were talking about transportation issues and how to provide access to people who need healthcare. And I had spent some time in Uganda and Ethiopia previously, so I at least know from these 3 countries that I visited that cell phones are very prevalent. I mean, almost everybody has a cell phone. So they were really working on SMS technology to send reminders to patients about getting in for their appointments and that kind of thing. And really it's, we're still rolling SMS technology out here in some ways in terms of reminding people about their appointments. My dentist just went to this technology a couple of years ago, right? So similar kinds of issues, and they were moving to electronic medical records there, which was really, it is really important because the women, some of the women move around a lot and may visit one clinic one time, another clinic another time. And so it was really important to start to move to electronic medical records. And again, I'm thinking we haven't had a really sophisticated system of electronic medical records, at least here in the US. I can't speak for the other countries that are represented on the call tonight, but for all that long. So it was really interesting to sit in on conversations that we too are having. And as I said, there are no shortage of ideas. They certainly don't need the Kiwanis Children's Fund to swoop in with ideas, or they certainly have really smart, wonderful people who are working on these issues. So it was an interesting parallel.
Any other questions? Well, Elizabeth, I want to thank you for your presentation tonight. We will make this available on the Kiwanis of Michigan YouTube page. Laura, I want to thank you for being with us tonight and for your service to the Kiwanis Children's Funds, and wish you good luck in your new role.
Thank you.
Is the executive director of is it Girls Inc?
Girls Inc. Yeah.
Girls Inc. in Indianapolis. Erin, thanks for being with us tonight. It's great to see you. It's been a while. And thanks to everybody that's with us, Tony and Don and Gyoko and Daniqua and Christine and Scott and Kenneth got in a little bit later. I want to remind you that next week's program, next Thursday night at 8 p.m. is the Zobra, which is the burning of the, I want to say the puppet in the Southwest District. There's Ken.
Marionette.
The marionette. I knew there was a word. I just couldn't remember.
Recently featured on The Bachelor, right?
Yes, we got major national coverage for about a minute and a half. Unbelievable.
That's great.
Yes. Yeah, a puppet, you put your hand into a puppet. A marionette, you move with strings.
Okay, marionette. All right, perfect. See, now I remember. So when we all get on next week and go like this, but they're going to talk about Zobra, which is a major project of their club and the fundraiser, and which would be great because I've always wanted to go. So I think this will get us all excited. And then that happens actually over the Labor Day weekend. So you'll get a chance to see what that program is all about and maybe even zoom in for some of the other stuff. So they are working after that. We will have the rest of the programs will be for the rest of the year. That calendar is at home. I'm at the Kiwanis convention, so I don't remember what the dates are, but I know that Zobra is next weekend. So we will call it a night. I'm going to head over to my Kiwanis District Board meeting and present on education, and we will see you guys next week. So
Great.
Okay.
thanks
care,
everybody.
everybody.
Thanks,
Have a good night.
Thanks for
Thanks,
Good job,
having me.
Elizabeth.
Yep.
You're welcome.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.